for the start of the season. He's already sitting on his couch with the TV on.
I'm jealous of Fionn, to be honest. He is he's going off on a little holiday to the sun. He's probably going to be watching this with a margarita in his hand. Just like I had my contract dispute last week. I wasn't on the show. Fionn's contract dispute is this week. So,
well, Jake, if you want a margarita that bad, I'm sure you can get the mix and just sit on your couch at home with it. That's fine. We'll have the light shine like around you, so it's like you're in the sunshine. It'll be fine. You know, you'll get everything you need without paying as much of the price. But we do have a bumper show for you today. We are previewing the season kickoff between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And to speak about the Super Bowl champ Buccaneers, we're delighted to be joined by Greg Auman of The Athletic. Craig, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. Enjoy this.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. So we'll get straight into it in 1 second. But before we do, guys, if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you head over to our Twitter and our Instagram. You follow us there at UnderCenterPod, because that's where you get all our latest updates. You'll find where we live tweeting as the games go out as well. And hopefully, if you have been paying attention, we just finished our competition giveaway. Thanks to Horror in the States, we'll have some more throughout the season. So make sure you are following us on those platforms so you can get involved in them when the next one pops up as well. But Craig, let's get straight into the football. You know, it's finally back. Months and months waiting. Crowds are also back as well. You know, for yourself, is this like Christmas Eve, you could say?
It's exciting. I mean, it's definitely something we've looked forward to for so long. Even with a shorter offseason than they're used to here in Tampa. It's been a while. Yeah. So as much as it was exciting when it went from September 9th to being just Thursday, and now tomorrow, and now, you know, it's here pretty much. So it's exciting just because you want to have things to write about that mean something. And now you get into the grind of the regular season and you blink and it'll be January or February.
That's it. That's one thing we always complain about here, is that the seasons are so short and the off season is way too long. But thankfully we have an extra week this year of regular season games, so we can sort of have that to keep us going for at least one more week this year. Yourself personally, have you sort of been in favor of the extra game week, or have you been against it?
I don't mind it. It's going to be the single biggest thing is that you're so used to all the records being 16 games. I think they'll finish 10-6. I think they'll finish 12-4. So to see the standings and projected standings, and it's like, is 9-8 a playoff team? Is that good enough to get in? That'll throw things off. I guess a little bit of the milestones and the records kind of getting an asterisk now. If somebody rushes for 1,000 yards, but they do it in the 17th game, it'll kind of have that mark of like, well, they had an extra week. But beyond that, I don't mind it. It's more of a good thing for the most part.
It must be nice to be able to write about an extra week of actual football instead of 4 weeks of preseason football.
Yeah, well, it's one more thing. For the Bucs, for the NFC teams this year, it's a road game, so you get the Bucs get a trip to Indianapolis, which is cool. I don't mind it. Like you said, the offseason is long enough as it is, so to trim a week off, it's probably a nice thing.
Definitely, for sure. In terms of the Bucs, though, this offseason has been quite a quiet preparation time for them, which is obviously always good news for fans of the team. You know, the quieter, the better. And I guess the only sort of real nuggets of information you could say we've been given is from sort of Tom Brady himself, you know, saying, obviously we heard the news that he dealt with a knee injury all last season, and also just last week we were told that he actually contracted COVID in February, just after the boat parade, when they were parading the Lombardi Trophy. So it seems as though he's taking what happened over in New England, sort of when he doesn't want news to come out, it doesn't come out, and that's going team wide at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where for him, I think part of the reason the Bucs were able to do what they did last year was just how well they handled things relative to other teams, minimized their risk. They had a couple of positives during the year. They had guys miss games even, but I think for them to be at 100% vaccinated right now is an extension of that, and just makes it less likely they're going to have outbreaks, less likely they're going to have people missing extended time, if you will. So for him, it's a good thing. It's difficult. Obviously, he's dealt with it himself personally. His parents were hit really hard by it last year as well. But that's all they can do. They're trying to control as much as they can, and being vaccinated, being careful with what you do away from home, and the football facility is part of that for them.
Yeah, and all 22 starters are back this year, but they've also made some important additions in important areas, notably on the offense, getting Gino Bernard to sort of be that third down back, the sort of James White role, you could say he's going to play that Brady had in New England. And on the defense with the draft, they've drafted, obviously, notably Joe Tryon, who's had a really, really good preseason as well to sort of add to that already stacked defensive line.
Yeah, they've loaded. I mean, their defense is very much homegrown for the most part. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul, they got in a trade. Ndamukong Suh is a signing. Shaq Barrett's a signing. But, and that secondary is all draft picks. You think about Devin White in the middle of that defense. Now you have Joe Tryon, Shoyinka at defensive end. Vita Vea, another high draft pick. So they've done a really good job stocking a young defense with talent. It's going to be hard for them to keep all of it and pay all of it when free agency comes here in the next probably year or two. But yeah, it's a homegrown defense, and they've really grown together in the last year or two.
If you get a couple of Super Bowls out of a homegrown defense, I think you would be okay with letting a couple of them walk because, one, they perform so well to get you to a Super Bowl, and two, it means you're probably getting a compensation pick back too.
Right. There's small things like that. And if you're good enough to be losing free agents and getting a comp pick, that's a good thing. That's a sign. There were a lot of times here where the Bucs were bad and didn't have anyone of consequence to lose in free agency. So I think they'll gladly take the opposite now.
Yeah, and looking at the injury report ahead of the game, we see that it looks like maybe Jordan Whitehead's probably not going to make it in time tomorrow. But also Chris Godwin showed up on the injury report yesterday with a quad injury. Is there any risk of him missing tomorrow?
Actually, literally, like as we're talking here, this just came up here just in the last 3 minutes here. The Bucs have put out their final injury report for the week. So it's literally breaking as we talk here. But the good news is Chris Godwin is not listed on that injury report at all. He's a full participant Wednesday and is not questionable, doubtful, out. He's not on the injury report, which is really good news for Bucs fans. He and Antonio Brown both look to be fine. They'll be without their starting safety, Jordan Whitehead, which is a loss. He's a good player for them, but that's the only player they'll be without on Thursday against the Cowboys.
And who are we expecting to take Whitehead's place?
Yeah, it's actually one of the best. I mean, if you had to lose a starter, it's a position where they're pretty well insulated against injury. So again, Mike Edwards, another draft pick, another young guy, third-round guy, plays a decent amount when they're in dime, has stepped in last year, stepped in as a starter in the playoffs when Winfield missed the game in Green Bay. Ball hawk, great center field type, can get under it and make plays, fumble recoveries, turnovers. Not the hitter that Jordan Whitehead is probably, but a solid replacement. One of the few places where they could take a starter and lose him and not feel a big drop off in the substitute coming in.
Greg, just looking closer to the ball on the same side, obviously that is a hugely strong defensive line area. Like that's probably one of the strongest football, top three, I would say. And obviously going up against a strong Cowboys offensive line, minus now Zach Martin. So how do you feel like that interior pressure is going to come against the backup, who I know is a quality depth in Connor McGovern, but obviously he's not as good as Zach Martin?
Yeah, I mean, very few are as good as Zach Martin. He's one of those guys, no matter who you're replacing with, it's not him. So I think that's a big deal. Like you said, defensive line is one of the strengths for the Bucs. This has been the number one rush defense in the NFL the last 2 years. They would like to do it again this year. So to have the Cowboys at less than full strength, I think that makes it harder for them to be a balanced offense. Ezekiel Elliott has run pretty well against these guys the 2 times he's played them. So if Zeke isn't as much of a threat, the Bucs' goal in any game is to kind of make a team one-dimensional. I think they'll take their chances with Dak throwing against them. Dak's had some really good games. He's 2-0 against the Bucs. He's hit at least 80% of his passes in both games. Not a lot of big plays, just moving the chains, being accurate as a passer. But like I said, if they can take away the run game, force Dak to beat you, I think they like their odds with that secondary, even against a really talented group of Cowboys receivers.
Yeah, and just on the offensive side of the ball, what's going to be the keys for Tom Brady and co to beat to get the better, I should say, of that Cowboys defense? Yeah,
I mean, this is a good thing for Tom. And that last year, this time, he was really rusty. Like, had barely gotten to know his teammates, had no traditional preseason training camp, and it kind of showed. I mean, he had 2 interceptions in the first game against the Saints last year. One of them was returned for a touchdown. So I think the hope for Tom Brady is that they're a little more polished, a little bit more on the same page, everyone being together in the same scheme. There's just a lot of familiarity there. And I think what will help them is just starting from a better place. This Cowboys defense can cause problems, but I think for Brady, he knows he has everybody back from last year. He has O.J. Howard healthy for the first time in 11 months. Giovanni Bernard is a pass-catching back they added for the Bengals that really helps their offense. So this should be the offense at close to full strength. Beyond the normal week one rust, it should be a good game for them.
Yeah, and like I was actually going to mention O.J. Howard because there was a lot of hype around him before the injury. There was some talk this offseason that he could be traded as well, but he seems to be fighting for his place there. And obviously with Gronk advanced in years too, and probably not the player that used to be. And Cameron Brate, who is sort of the end zone sort of target for Tom Brady as well. There is sort of a spot there for O.J. Howard if he can sort of stay healthy and grasp the opportunity.
Yeah, this is a big year for O.J. Howard. He's playing on a 5th-year option, will be a free agent in the spring. If he can kind of reestablish himself as being healthy, being the guy he was his first 2 years in the league, he had 11 touchdowns his first 2 seasons in the league. If he gets back to that, he's going to be well paid on the open market this spring, whether the Bucs can afford him or whether he goes somewhere else. And if he isn't, if he's missing games with injuries, again, if he's not living up to the high expectations when you're a top 20 pick as a tight end, I'm not sure what happens with him. Like you said, Gronk's getting up there. He certainly has, he's probably going to play as long as Brady plays, which could be longer than we realize. But this is a big chance for O.J. Howard to kind of get back. I mean, last year, I think in the first 4 games before he got hurt, he had 2 touchdowns. In his brief time with Tom Brady, they had kind of started to click. So they'd love to have him get back to that. If you think about some of Tom Brady's best seasons in New England, he did really well in 12 personnel back when Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez were thriving. I think he had 24 touchdowns to tight ends one year in 11. They'd like to get back to that. 12 personnel in this offense with Evans and Godwin and Gronk and Howard is a nightmare for most defenses. And the idea of Tom Brady being able to find the open guy among those 4, he could do really well with that. So if Howard can get on the field healthy, reestablish himself. The cool thing about having Gronk and Howard on the field is that it doesn't really telegraph whether you're running or passing. They're both really good blockers. They're both really capable pass targets. So for the diversity of their offense, that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about Antonio Brown, because Arians did make the comparison last week of him saying that he's at the level at his time with the Steelers. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. How has Antonio Brown been in the offseason?
Remarkably good. I mean, again, on his best behavior, saying and doing the right things. Came in here kind of on the fly last year, mid-season, hadn't played football in a year, probably needed a month or so to find himself, and then was really good for them. Connected with Tom Brady. I think he had 4 touchdowns in the span of 5 games. Caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Free agency, I wasn't sure they'd bring him back. I thought, if he's a number 3 receiver in Tampa Bay, he could probably get more catches and a bigger role elsewhere, but didn't necessarily have that market elsewhere. Came back here like a $6 million deal. This is great depth for them. If they have games where Mike Evans or Chris Godwin is hurt, he's a Pro Bowl receiver they have sitting as a 3rd receiver. So over the course of the year, that could really come in handy. I think he's a guy that is the best. Worst scenario, he's the best number 3 receiver in the NFL, and he's certainly capable of challenging Godwin and Evans not only for catches and targets, but for touchdowns as well. So it'll be fun to see at age 33 what he can do, much like Brady, to kind of defy the odds at an age where most people start dropping off.
Yeah, and fine. Go ahead. Sorry, Jake.
Greg, I just wanted to talk to you. We mentioned earlier about homegrown talent, and obviously one of the big ones here is Tristan Wirfs. And obviously I'm a Giants fan, so last year we had the big who was the best offensive lineman of the groups. There was Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, Mekhi Becton. Obviously it has not looked great for Andrew Thomas at the moment, but Tristan Wirfs actually looks fabulous at the minute. So how has he gone, say, from the start, maybe a little bit of a rockier start, and then kind of got into it, and now this offseason? So how do you think he's going to perform against, as well, probably against Micah Parsons this Thursday?
Yeah, they love Tristan Wirfs here in Tampa. For them to have the 4th offensive lineman in this draft class and to come out with maybe the best after a rookie year, they're really thrilled. I think everyone knew he was a ridiculous athlete at Iowa. We saw the videos of him jumping out of the pool, landing on his feet, the weight room, numbers he put up were insane. But again, has come in with confidence, was literally an every down starter for them last year. I think he played every single snap on offense. I think he's the only guy that did that for the whole team. So to come in and really solidify things at right tackle, they were a much improved offensive line last year, and he was a big part of that. So they're really excited about him here. We did a redraft at the Athletic where you go back and you go through and pick everything. And, the Bucs are sitting there at 14 originally. And not only was Wirfs the first guy off the board, Wirfs went, I think, fourth maybe. And Antoine Winfield was gone before the Bucs picked as well. So that's two picks that they really nailed last year. To where, again, I'm sitting there at 14 as the Bucs, and it's like, well, I guess they need a tackle. I think I took Andrew Thomas just because he was kind of the next best available tackle. But yeah, they really lucked out to get him as the fourth guy in that rookie tackle class and have him play as well as he did.
Do you think it helps a little bit having one of the best quarterbacks of all time to get the ball out?
Absolutely. To go from Jameis Winston to to go for him to Tom Brady helps in a lot of ways, but in terms of knowing when to get rid of the ball, having an awareness, I think their sacks went from like 48 with Winston to like 23 or 24 with Brady. And that's not just the offensive line getting better. Some of that is just Brady knowing to get rid of the ball, having kind of that vision and an awareness that you get by playing in the league for 21 years. So I think that makes an offensive line's numbers look pretty good.
Yeah, I want to ask you quickly, actually, just about Byron Leftwich. Very well thought of in Tampa Bay. A head coach candidate, a lot of talk is with him. How important was it to sort of keep him this offseason, and especially because there was so many head coaching jobs available?
Yeah, I think the Bucs felt really lucky. Some of it is just staying in the playoffs and having your candidates unavailable for these jobs because they're still coaching their old team. But for them to keep Byron Leftwich and to keep Todd Bowles, both of which you probably could have left for head coaching jobs under different circumstances, was really a plus. As much as we talk about Bruce Arians having everybody back on his roster, he pretty much brings back his entire coaching staff. The only loss they took was their assistant receivers coach, Antoine Randall went to the Lions, and that's the only loss they have. So for Bruce Arians, at age 68, very much kind of a CEO delegator of a coach now, it's a huge thing for him to have assistants that he trusts, that know his system, and are very much just an extension of him. Leftwich played under Arians, has coached under Arians, is now the play caller here. Still a young guy. He's younger than Tom Brady. He's 41 years old. So as head coach candidates go, that's great to see. Obviously, offensive-minded candidates are kind of front of the list for the openings, it seems, of late. So I think if the Bucs have anything close to the same kind of season, I would think Byron Leftwich is interviewing for jobs, and maybe it'll be this offseason. Teams don't mind waiting until the Bucs are done with their season to get guys like Bowles and like Leftwich.
Okay, perfect. And one last question before we let you go there, Craig. Who's going to win tonight?
I think, honestly, and I would have said this even before the Zach Martin injury, I think the Bucs can handle this pretty well. I think they're going to be able to score a lot of points. Being at home, that crowd at capacity for the first time in a long time here will be an emotional thing for them, but I think it's something they can handle. So I feel like they're about a touchdown favorite, and I think they win and they cover. I think it feels like, if I had to guess right now, like 35-24, something like that, where they win it and it's in hand. I think the Cowboys will score some, but I don't think this will be a close game in the end.
I think the last I checked, the spread was the Bucs giving 8.5 to the Cowboys. So.
Yeah, I think I saw 7.5 today, but yeah, right in that range, like just over a touchdown.
I'm going to go to the bookies now. I'm going to put on 35-24.
And it's my fault if it doesn't happen. Yeah.
But if he wins, you're out half. Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We're going to focus on the Cowboys side. But Craig, again, thanks so much, and we'll speak to you hopefully again during the season.
All right, take care. Enjoy the game.
and welcome back to the Under Center podcast with Dara and Jake. And we are just after finishing up our Bucs side of the season opener preview. We're going to talk now about the Cowboys, and we're delighted to have a friend of the show back on with us today, Kyle Youmans from Talkin Cowboys Radio. Kyle, it's great to have you on again. How have you been?
You know, I've been good, ready for the year to get started. It's like we were talking about off air, it's a short week at the Star, which is a bit hectic in a normal sense, even if we were in the groove of a season. But with it being a short week and the first game of the year, it certainly makes things a little added intensity around here. But we are excited to get things kicked off and pumped for Thursday night.
Oh, it's going to be a very exciting game to look forward to.
Yeah, I was just going to say that definitely it's the most talked about game this week, obviously, not just because it's a season opener, but the fixture itself. But I'm sure you're sort of delighted to have a little less sort of foot traffic going around the Star this week, because obviously the guys from Hard Knocks now, they've finished the series with the last episode airing last night. What's it been like the last couple of weeks having them around?
You know, it has been different. And from a standpoint of a training camp where we finally had the opportunity to go back out to Oxnard, California and have that training camp out on the West Coast, it was really it was interesting to see them as a part of the process. And of course, it hadn't been a part of the process since 2016. And now we get an opportunity to see it again. And we loved having those guys around. I mean, the professionalism, the talent on that crew is pretty unbelievable, and they were great all the way throughout. And it got to the point where they were so good at their jobs that you would forget that they were even around at certain points. And I think that was a credit to them overall, and that's kind of what they're supposed to do is be a fly on the wall. And it kind of did give that opportunity for NFL fans, Cowboys fans specifically, to get that inside look and that fly on the wall feel for what was a crucial training camp for this ball club, and something that I know fans will look back on and remember for years.
Yeah, it's something that we got to see throughout the season as well, throughout the series, I should say. And we're going to see for the first time in a year is crowds back at games. Now, I know the Cowboys did have like limited seating at their games for last season, but we're back to full stadiums now. And I'm sure the area is very excited for it.
Yeah, I think everybody's pretty excited to have full crowds back in store. And you're going to see a massive one Thursday night in Tampa Bay. I mean, that's a team that's going to be raising their second ever banner. They're going to be celebrating a Super Bowl title, and the Cowboys are going to try and spoil that celebration. And that's the thing that I guess people don't really think about is in 2020, sure, the Cowboys played in front of more fans than any team in the NFL, mostly in part because they had the biggest capacity than any team in the NFL, with almost 30,000 fans on average at AT&T Stadium. But you also got to think a lot of those, if not all of those, are home fans. And then on the road, it's a Cowboys-centric fan base as well. They're going to go into a hostile environment with fans that are not wearing navy and silver for the first time since 2018 on Thursday night. So I think that's an added challenge for this team that they haven't necessarily had a chance to look at previously. And I think it's going to be a crucial way to answer that early on to make sure that they answer the bell and they're able to stand up even in the presence of some ruckus crowd.
Kyle, let's just take the focus on the game. Obviously, we want to get a little bit of your insight on this. Dak obviously had kind of a little bit of an injury there a couple of weeks ago, but he has been a full participant, if I'm not mistaken, this week, and he is good to go for Thursday, right?
He is good to go. He has been full participant really since before the Jacksonville game, which was the final preseason tune-up for this squad. So he's ready to go. I really have zero concerns week one about Dak Prescott. Just the way that the shoulder injury was, and of course the official injury was a shoulder strain right underneath his throwing arm that he sustained in the first padded practice in Oxnard, which was July 28th. So it's been a long time since he actually sustained the injury, and he has had no flare-ups since then. But my biggest thing is I want to see him get hit, which sounds weird. I don't want my starting quarterback, especially when you signed the biggest deal in NFL history this offseason, to get hit. but he needs that. He needs to have that physicality and know that he can get right back up, whether it was the ankle injury and then into the shoulder injury. He's going to have to take a hit on Thursday night to really feel like he's back and ready to go completely. But as far as the arm motion, the throwing, his ability of running the football and running an offense, I really have no concerns about what he's going to bring to the table, and it should be fun to watch.
Yeah, as a Giants fan who watched Saquon Barkley obviously tear his ACL last year, he also needs to get a good hit in to shake the cobwebs off, get the rust off, and become back to himself again. And hopefully for Dak, I like Dak. I don't like him as a Cowboy, but that's just me personally. But I like him as a person, so hopefully he can come back 100%, maybe even stronger than that, except for his against the Giants.
Yeah, one of those guys that you love if he's on your team, and you hate to hate him if you're on the other team, because he's such a likable guy and he's such a leader. It's the same thing with Saquon Barkley. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a leader in that squad, and he is one hell of a football player. But he's on the Giants, and that's an issue. And so, yeah, I feel that same sort of sentiment toward Dak Prescott as you guys certainly do with the Giants and Saquon Barkley, because I think he's one heck of a football player, and I think it's better for the league if he's back and playing well, and it's saying the same for Dak Prescott as well. Yeah,
but now the Cowboys do have their own star running back in Ezekiel Elliott, and we've seen there leading up to this game that he's looking an awful lot trimmer. All reports is that he's running fantastically well. It's kind of a big season coming up here for Zeke as well, because he's sort of, I wouldn't say struggled, but he's maybe underperformed the last 2 seasons. So I'm sure Cowboys fans and obviously the team as well are hoping that this is going to be a big year for Zeke.
Yeah, he's still, even in the last 2 years, like you said, is probably a top 8 running back in the NFL. But it's interesting because you're right, underperformed is a great way to put it, because now you're comparing him to being the top paid running back in the NFL, with him in that $90 million contract that he signed prior to the 2019 season. So, yes, if you're talking about Zeke needing to put up numbers, I think certainly this year is an important one at doing so. But his focus isn't necessarily the numbers. It's making sure he puts his offense in the best place to succeed, and he puts his team in the best place to succeed. Because even in 2020, when he did have his first season where he did not hit 1,000 yards rushing in his career, that wasn't even really the biggest issue. The biggest issue was holding on to the football and putting your defense with backs against the wall and short field for an opposing offense on 6 different occasions. You cannot be paid $9 million and fumble the ball 6 times, which led all non-quarterbacks in fumbles in 2020 in the NFL. So you got to hold on to the football. That's been a huge concern of Zeke. It's been a huge focus of this offense is taking care of the football and not turning it over. I'm excited to see what he has, because you mentioned how slim he has been, and he's down to his playing weight that he had at Ohio State. He's looking quick. He's looking concise. He's looking sharp. And I think now that you finally get an opportunity with a healthy offensive line in front of him, even though there are a couple patchwork spots up there, I think you're going to see a better version of Zeke than you have over the last couple of years.
Kyle, it's like you read my mind. I was just about to segue into the offensive line for the Cowboys, which has obviously been a huge strength most of the time. And unfortunately, this week you don't have Zach Martin due to, well, I don't think he's 100% out unless I missed the injury report, but it is looking likely he won't play the game. And that's such a big missing character, because of he's a Pro Bowl guy. He's one of the best to play. But how do you feel about going up against Ndamukong Suh with Connor McGovern, which I know he's a quality backup, but he is not Zach Martin?
Well, Jake, you read my mind much like how I read yours a moment ago. We're on the same wavelength, because I don't care who you are. You're not going to replace Zach Martin. He's one of the top right guards in football. I mean, if he's able to put together a couple more healthy seasons, he's on his way to a gold jacket with how dominant he has been since entering the league in 2014. So I don't feel good about him not being out. However, I feel better just because it is Connor McGovern that's going to fill that hole. Because if you had to mark a 6th man, I mean, you know how they give out the awards in the NBA for 6th man of the year. He's your 6th man on the offensive line. He is the most talented backup you have it's easier to put him in at the guard spot and say, all right, stand strong against one of the best front sevens in football, and that's exactly what Tampa Bay is going to bring Thursday night. Connor McGovern is one of the more improved, one of the more stout players you could put in there that's not Zach Martin. Now, if you're expecting Zach Martin quality of play, you're going to be disappointed. And Cowboys fans, certainly, whenever one guy's out, they want the same production put back in. You can't expect that from Connor McGovern. He will have his lapses. There will be plays blown up just based off of the fact that he's a backup and he's going up against the starting caliber players that Tampa Bay is going to put up there. But I do feel better about him being in there rather than maybe missing a guy like Lyle Collins on the outside, who at least earlier this week seemed like he was questionable to play. At the moment, he is going to play Thursday night, and I don't think there's a whole lot of issue there. So I'm excited to see just how the Cowboys scheme around not having Zach Martin if he is unable to play come Thursday night. But ultimately, you would love to have both of those guys there and have guys like Zeke and Dak fully protected in the backfield.
Yeah, and Kyle, let's quickly move on then to the defense, because it's going to be the first game under new defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. Obviously, the first NFL game for your number one first round draft pick, Micah Parsons, who's had a really good preseason as well. And it looks as if they're going to move him around a little bit, because he won't just be playing as a middle linebacker. It looks like he'll be playing in a few pass rush sets as well.
Yeah, he's going to be very versatile, and I think that's what the exciting piece is for Micah Parsons heading into this first game, is just how are they going to use him. I mean, a 4.36 40, the size, the speed, the strength from Micah Parsons is certainly rare on the defensive side of the football, and Dan Quinn is going to utilize that to his advantage. And I think Cowboys fans are excited to watch him. I want to see him get after Tom Brady. I want to see him kind of like how Osa Odigizua said earlier this week. And now he might have been speaking out of turn a little bit, rookie, saying that, hey, he's solved Tom Brady, because nobody in 22 seasons has solved Tom Brady. But that's one thing I would think this Cowboys defense is going to try and do. And they're going to try and get Tom Brady off his spot and make sure that he is rushed to throw the football, try and get him to make some mistakes, even though those don't come very often from Mr. Brady. I think Micah Parsons is one of those guys they can utilize to try and get in there quickly, get in the face, and show off that speed a little bit, because he certainly has that, and he has that sideline ability, which is really exciting.
He's definitely an exciting person to look at. From watching through Hard Knocks, him and his family are very exciting.
Yeah, that was a part of Hard Knocks. Him and Trayvon Diggs' family was pretty exciting too.
Yeah. And speaking of Trayvon Diggs and the sort of backfield with the DBs, a tough year for them last year. And how has the offseason been for them? It would be sort of to see some sort of maybe, influence with Dan Quinn to sort of maybe improve on things this year.
Yeah, I think you're going to see an improvement on that unit of the football. And sure, Dan Quinn's going to play a factor into that. But I also think the depth just outlines better than it did a year ago, because you were looking at the three guys that are starting, Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis, as your guys. I mean, that was about it. Cheeto Awuzie was not very available last year at the safety position. You had a revolving door next to Donovan Wilson. This year, you've got some guys next to Donovan Wilson. You have a former first-round draft pick in Malik Hooker and a former Dan Quinn disciple in DeMonte KZ. So you have two veterans at the free safety spot that you feel really good about. And if that wasn't enough to add to the secondary, how about bringing in guys like Maurice Kennedy, who was an opt-out a year ago, who had one of the better camps out of any defender that the Cowboys threw out there. Trayvon Diggs heading into his second year. You drafted Kelvin Joseph. He's out for the first 6 weeks of the season, so you'll have to worry about him later on. But Nashawn Wright certainly brings an added element with his length and his speed as a rookie. Israel Mukwamu made the 53-man roster. He brings length and speed as well and can play both safety and corner. So I think overall, the way that this roster is made up heavily impacts this defense, at least in the secondary, by just giving some more depth than the Cowboys have been used to having back there in the past.
Yeah, excellent. And before we sort of wrap it up, obviously everyone is expecting a Bucs win, but what are going to be the keys to the game for the Cowboys to sort of upset the Buccaneers?
Everyone's expecting a Bucs win. What are you saying? Are you saying
Okay.
Shot here? What are you trying to do? Yeah, I mean, I'm a football fan too. I personally think the Cowboys match up much better with the Buccaneers than a lot of people think. And the reason why is just the fact that they're back and healthy for the most part. And I'm excited to see how the Cowboys do combat be back and healthy with such a talented roster on the other side. My biggest thing is you got to control the line of scrimmage, and that is easier said than done. I think you can get after Tom Brady. I think you can take advantage of this Bucs offensive line and really put some pressure on Brady in the backfield. But vice versa, you've got to slow down this front seven because they are going to get after the football. And Dak Prescott's going to be under duress. Like we talked about earlier, Connor McGovern's going to have his faults here and there and a bit of a learning curve. Even though he did play 600 snaps last year, he's going to have some learning curve filling in for Zach Martin. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think whoever controls the line of scrimmage better is going to have the biggest chance to win. So I don't really want to count the Cowboys out just yet.
Well, Dak is 2-0, I think, isn't he, against the Bucs? So
he is. Cowboys are 15-4 all time, but this is a much different Bucs team than what they.
So I think last time I checked that the bookies were given 8.5 points to the Cowboys. How do you think that is? I mean, obviously you want the Cowboys to win. Do you think they match you up better than 8.5 points?
Yeah, I would pick them to cover. I'm not be a betting man because I work in the NFL, but if I were allowed to be a betting man, I think the Cowboys would cover because even if the Cowboys don't lose, I don't see them getting just blown off the football and straight up beat. I think it'll be a tight ball game. And if anything, I think the last team that gets the ball is going to win this football game, along with controlling the line of scrimmage. So I would say they cover. And honestly, we've got a prediction article about to come out on DallasCowboys.com, and I'm the only one that picked them to actually straight up win. So I'm going against the curve a little bit here. And no, it's not because I'm a homer. It's because I think the Cowboys will go 1-1. They'll either win this week and lose to the Chargers, or they'll lose this week and beat the Chargers. And that's just the way that I see it playing out.
So Kyle, give me a correct score guess then if you're picking the Cowboys in this one.
Cowboys 34, Tampa Bay 28. The Cowboys just hold off a late charge that would have been a game-winning touchdown drive from Tom Brady. They get the one play they need late, and they get the win.
Okay.
34-20. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going straight to the bookie.
Well, I guess our previous guest, Craig, won't be too happy if you're going to go with that one then, because you were asking about the same one, and he had.
I don't have to limit myself to one, Ben.
I think he had the Bucs winning it. He also
30.
said there was going to be a 34. He's going to say the Bucs are going to win 35-24. I think he said in the end it was going to be, wasn't it? So
interesting.
He said they'll cover. He said the Bucs will cover there that 8.5. Well, it'll be interesting seeing. Look, it's fantastic that we're going to actually have some live football back on our television screens. And for some of the lucky ones like yourself, Kyle, you'll be able to go and actually watch them live in person. So we're not jealous at all. Don't worry about that.
We're not watching it live in person, actually.
No?
Yeah, so during the preseason, we watch it live, and I'm on the sideline for the broadcasts. But for the regular season, we host the pre- and post-game shows from the facility in Texas. So we're from the Star in Texas, where we do our pre- and post-game shows. So we watch it in studio, just like you guys do on the television screens. Don't be too jealous.
Well,
you're still at the Star, so we're going to be jealous about that.
Can we get a look at the Star? Are you allowed to show us?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in room specifically that's probably the best at doing so, but yeah, I'll show you guys at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll hold you to it.
Listen, Kyle, it's been great to have you on. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us in such a hectic sort of couple of days before the start of the year. Listen, best of luck. I know Jake doesn't want me to say this, but best of luck to the Cowboys this year. See if they can come out on top in the NFC East, and I'm sure we'll probably be checking in with you at some point during the year too.
Yeah, sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me anytime.
Thanks for coming on,
stuff.
Cal.
And that is the end of our preview for this one. So make sure you enjoy the game later on between the Cowboys and the Bucs, and the games on Sunday and Monday too. We'll be back with you next week, wrapping up what was the first week of the NFL season, what was good, what was bad, and we'll look ahead also to week 2 as well. But until then, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.